My name's Andy. I know some of you, not all of you. I've been with company Team Hired for over 3 years now and serve as our national sales director. I love what we do. We help agencies hire producers, service people. We offer telemarketers. We offer pre-licensing for property and casualty and life and health. And I learned about Michael years ago and had a friend of mine introduce me and learned that he would, I'm going to let him shine some light on himself this morning, but I know that he's got an extensive experience as an actual agency owner, but now he leads up what is the Weaver Sales Academy. And they're just an unbelievable outfit that helps support ongoing training, coaching, scripting, and development of entire teams and agencies to help them go, become the best versions that they possibly can be in the industry. So what I'd like to do is, Michael, if you don't mind just kicking us off, for those of you, you that are here that don't know Michael, I'd love if you could maybe real quick rewind the clock a few years before Weaver Sales Academy and just give a background of like how you even got involved in this in the first place and what your background was before founding the Weaver Sales Academy. And then after that, we'll just kind of, I'll do an intro from there and we'll dive in. But do you mind just giving a little bit of your background for those of you who don't know?
Yeah, man, I'd love it. And Andy, thank you for the opportunity today. So my journey in the insurance industry started in 2009. So I'm dating myself a little bit. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I've been in the industry for 15 years now. Like it's crazy. But so 15 years, 2009, I joined as a producer for a captive agency. And it wasn't an easy road. So ultimately I needed an internship. And so I went around door knocking and got told no and no and no. And finally came across an agent's office that didn't seem like it was dead. Like when I walked in, like a funeral home. And I was like, this is awesome. This is a great opportunity. But he's like, come back when you graduate college. I'm like, well, that's a problem in itself. I need an internship to be able to graduate. So I showed up the next morning at like 8:30 a.m. right when he got out of his car, unlocked the door. I walked in behind him. He's like, Michael, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm going to show up every day until you give me an opportunity. So that's when my journey started. He brought me in as a marketing expert, which honestly meant cold calling and errand boy, doing all the things that nobody else in the office wanted to do, and prove myself. He offered me a job full-time upon graduating college. So that's really when my opportunity or journey started in the insurance industry. And I fell in love with it because you get to help people, you get to make a lot of money. Like the harder you work, the more money you get to make. And that was really important to me just because I grew up in a household that was extremely blue collar. My dad worked for a company called Yellow Freight, YRC. You guys might have saw them. They went bankrupt last year actually, but in 2007, 2008, he lost his pension plan, or about 75% of it, and had to work. He's still working today. He was supposed to retire 7 years ago. So there's a passion. I've always had a passion around helping people with their finances, planning for the future, making sure they're dependent on themselves and nobody else. And so insurance and financial services really aligned with that. And so started my journey in agency ownership in 2014. We opened a scratch agency. And that's when things got really fun. So I went from that producer to now leader CEO, but I was also still in the trenches. I was everything from lead producer to community liaison to head marketer. And I had a team obviously with me from the very beginning. And we did really, really well. I mean, we were a top 100 agency out of 20,000 agents every year from the time we started in a town of 8,000 people. And then, I had been taught how to like really transactional sell. Like when you're talking about life insurance, like I'd always been taught just package. Some life insurance is better than no life insurance. The problem with that is I felt sleazy. I felt like a product pusher. I never felt confident in the conversations I was having with customers just because it was super transactional. And so my agency actually really struggled with the life insurance premium. Like we could write some apps, but we struggled with premium. And then in 2016, I hate talking about 2016, but in 2016, going into the end of May, I had 5 life apps and on time for 13,000 in premium. And I knew at that point in time, things had to change. And so I decided to invest heavily in myself and become the life insurance guy. I didn't want to be the life insurance guy, but that's what my customers wanted and that's what they needed. And so I decided to take that on and invest in myself. So I really dove into training, coaching, getting myself better at the life insurance product, more specifically the life insurance conversation itself, because products don't sell, conversations do. And so by really learning that over the next 3 months, which is going to be a lot of the material I'll talk about today, between June, July, and August, at the end of August, we'd submitted over 70 life apps and over $100,000 in premium. And so we created this formula that really worked, that's simple in nature, focused on conversations with people. And we never, ever after that year wrote less than 100,000 in life insurance premium ever again. 2018 is when we started Weaver Sales Academy, so coaching, training full time. And then in 2022, we exited 4 of our businesses, including the insurance agency, to do full-time coaching and training. And now we work with over 5,000 insurance professionals across the country currently year to date in 2024. So that's a little bit of our journey, my journey. I say our because my wife and I, we own the company together. We started the insurance agency together. But yeah, that's a little bit about my journey, Andy.
That's beautiful. And what were you guys, I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot, man, but what did it look like in terms of your production on the life side, let's say on a monthly basis at kind of the height within your agency? Just out of curiosity.
That's a great question, man. So typically, and it's crazy. So our team size, I always said we were small but mighty. We always had about 4 to 5 total people within the agency, even though we had a $5 million plus book. And so there was a lot of inside sales, a lot of outside sales. On average, I mean, we were averaging issued 12 to 15 policies a month every single month. So, which is exactly what we needed to do to be able to, again, if you're having quality conversations, and the average premium we submitted per policy was almost $100 a month per paid life insurance policy, so $1,200 a year. And that was always my goal for my team. Like, if you could get really good at having a needs-based conversation, it's not that we had to submit 20, 30, 40 a month to get to that goal. It's what can we do, the type of conversations we have. So that's a great question, Andy.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, I'm already pumped up. So what I'd like to do is transition in and kind of give you just the floor today, because you've already prepared, I know, a lot of the material to take everyone through. And I think everyone here is a student. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I want to congratulate everyone for showing up, because like to take time out of your day and actually be here to learn something new. I'm sure some of you crush it on the life side, and some of you are probably maybe more of like where Michael was in 2016, just like, how do I figure this out? So I know we have a spectrum here with us today. But Michael, if you don't mind kind of giving us your secret sauce, man. I know everyone here would love to see the formula on how you would approach, getting those life sales up, and just the overall philosophy and strategy here. So without further ado, man, I'll give you the floor. And if you need me for anything, I'll be here on the side, just learning along with everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andy, thank you again. And again, thank you for all of you that showed up today, invested in yourselves. I know that time is the most important asset that we all have. So you all showing up today means a lot. So thank you. I would love to start off the call just real fast. If you could put in the chat box just one thing that you're grateful for today. It could be as small as a cup of coffee. It could be your family, whatever it may be. I like to always start every training off with an attitude of gratitude. I'm a big believer in attitude of gratitude. Changed my life. Gratitude exercise is something I do every single day, because the more good things that you're thinking about, the more good things that you're going to attract. All right. So if you could, let's do that. So let's kick this off. Today is all about you all. It's learning how to turn every single customer conversation and interaction into a life insurance opportunity. So today, what I'm going to be breaking down, I'm going to be breaking down some ways that you can use some inside sales strategies, like your pivots and your cross sells. So turning every single service transaction, I put service in quotes here, because every single service transaction is an opportunity to have a life insurance conversation. We're also going to be going beyond the ask. So it's one thing to ask and bring it up. It's another thing to then what happens after that conversation starts. What type of questions do you need to be asking the customer to get them emotionally involved into actually having a life insurance conversation with you? And the questions I'm going to teach you will not only help them get more emotionally involved in the conversation, but they're great qualifying questions that's automatically going to tell you, based off of their answer, whether they're an ideal prospect to be having a life insurance conversation with, or hey, this probably isn't an ideal person, let's move on. So we're going to cover that today. We're also going to cover some new business sales strategies. So how can you incorporate life insurance into every single new business P&C sales conversation that you and your team are having, all right? So that's what's on the agenda today. If you have questions, make sure you put those either in the Q&A or the chat box, because I'll make sure that I open it up at the very end to answer any and all questions that you may have, all right? So let's get into this. First and foremost, every interaction, every single time, anybody in your agency that is answering the phone on a daily basis, helping serve customers, you're really going to have to help coach them up to be able to have this life insurance opportunity. So these strategies I'm about to use is for anybody that is currently answering the phone, talking to customers on a daily basis, for your added autos, your change of addresses. Hey, I'm thinking about getting an auto quote. Michael, my rates just went up. What's going on, man? So all of these interactions that you and your team are having every single day is going to be a great way to utilize these strategies. So the very first pivot I'm going to teach you, or cross-selling strategy I'm going to teach you, is what I call the household cleaning pivot. Now, this pivot anyone can use, whether you're life insurance licensed or not licensed. Like, it doesn't matter. Here we're just going to ask a question to get the conversation started. So a household cleaning pivot is where you help them out. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I got that change of auto done for you. Now, before I let you off the phone, I just want to make sure that your client file is up to date. So is the best phone number to reach you at still this? Is the best email address still this? And then we're going to pivot into the conversation. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I have to apologize. I don't see any notes on file regarding your life insurance plan. Tell me, what does your life insurance plan currently look like? For example, what do you have through work? Now, this is a really key portion of this question, because I want you to always assume that they have it through work, because as a life insurance professional, the number one objection you are going to receive is what? I've got it through work. I'm good. Because that's all the consumer thinks. The consumer, they don't know what they don't know. So they think, hey, I have life insurance. It's through work. My family's protected. I've done my due diligence. And so by automatically assuming that they have it through work, you're going to overcome that objection. So, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I don't see any notes on file regarding your life insurance plan. What does your current life insurance plan look like? For example, what do you have through work? And they're going to answer. Whatever they answer, great. Then it's, what do you have outside of work? Well, I don't have anything outside of work. Okay, no worries. So this is where, in my experience, and I used to sell this way, it's the way not to sell. So many times we ask the work question, what do you have outside of work? And then what do? We want to start convincing them that they need life insurance outside of work, because we want to take care of them. You want to take care of your customer. But the problem is you can talk until you're blue in the face about all the reasons why they should have life insurance outside of work. It's not your job to convince anybody that they need life insurance. And you're not going to convince very many people that they need life insurance unless you get really good at asking questions. So this is where I would encourage you to pause and start to ask questions versus telling the customer why they need life insurance. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the questions now, and then we'll cover some more pivots later, because I feel like I'm on a roll right now. So when you get into this life insurance conversation, let's cover some of these questions. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, so I'm glad that you have it through work. Now, you don't have anything outside of work. That's totally fine. One question I have for you is, would you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially? So do you consider, or would you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially? So this is a great qualifying question, because if they answer yes to this, you automatically know you more than likely have somebody that is a life insurance prospect. If they answer no to this, this may not be an ideal avatar, an ideal customer to have a life insurance conversation with. But either way, you're going to respond with why, or tell me about that. Hey, tell me about what it looks like to provide financially for your family. Tell me why you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially. All right. And then no, Same thing. Hey, tell me about that. Who is responsible for providing for your family financially? So yes, Eden, definitely. So the question is, do you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially? All right, it's a really, really great question. And then what I want you to really take away from this is following it up with a why, or tell me about that. So these types of questions you have to dig into, because customers are going to give you extremely high level answers. You know, customers are going to be like, yep, I go to work every day to provide for my family. Well, it just can't be that, because you have to dig in to get them emotionally involved and emotionally bought in. You ask questions to help the customer self-discover that they have a problem. This is how you're going to empower the customer. Okay, so great. So we ask this question, we go into why, or tell me about that. The next question, I'm going to give you 3 questions that you can use in 99% of life insurance conversations. So the next question is, great, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. So you do consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially. My question for you would be is if you were to pass away today unexpectedly, would you still consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? Now, you can change the verbiage on this. I want you all to make these questions yours. You could say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, if you were to pass away today, would you still want to continue to provide for your family financially? See how I changed that a little bit? I changed that verbiage just a little bit. So whatever verbiage works for you, I want you to be comfortable with it. So make these questions yours. But again, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, if you were to pass away unexpectedly today, would you still consider yourself, or would you still want to provide for your family financially tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? Now, when they answer yes to this, you just ask 2 qualifying questions that got a yes to both. This is a hot life insurance lead. Now you're going to dig in. You got to dig in here. Well, why? Why would it be important to you to continue to provide for your family financially? Or tell me about that. What would it look like? This is an even more powerful question. What would it look like for your family if you didn't continue to provide for them financially? What would happen? Because you see, by asking this type of question, or the tell me about that why, what happens here is they start to think about something that they don't want to think about. And that's your job. Your job is to have conversations with people, even if they're a little hard, even if the questions are hard and tough questions for them to answer. That's your job. You have an opportunity to help someone. You have an opportunity to create a plan for someone's family on their worst day that they don't have to struggle financially. So you're going to have to dig in. You're going to have to get comfortable asking these questions. Now, the last question I would tell you, so they answered yes to this. Great. Yes. You've done the why, you've done the tell me about that. Then it's, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, how long would you want to continue to provide for your family financially? So for example, here, if someone has kids in the household, and let's pretend they have a 4-year-old, I would say, well, hey, Andy, my last question for you here is how long would you want to continue to provide for your family if you were to pass away? So I know that you have a 4-year-old in the household. Would you want to get your 4-year-old up until they're 18, 20, 22, 12? What would be a good number for you that you would be comfortable with? So I'm asking lots of questions here because I'm curious. I'm curious about what is their plan. What do they want? What would be ideal for them? So I don't want to give them ideas. I don't want to be like, oh, hey, do you want to cover for the next 2 years? I want to go big picture first. So I want to think long-term down the road first, just like I'm thinking big premiums first. I'm never going to bring up $100,000 in death benefit to somebody. I'm going to bring up $1 million in death benefit. I'm not going to bring up 2 years. I'm going to bring up 20 years down the road. Like, how long would you want to continue to make sure that your family could continue to live the same lifestyle that they're living today with you? How long would you want to make sure that your family would never have to worry about struggling financially? What is a good amount of time for you? All right, does this make sense to everybody all with me here? But these questions, When I started asking these questions in 2016, that is when my life insurance game, it really, really changed for the better. Like I started having quality conversations with customers. I started feeling like I was actually making a difference. I started feeling fulfilled in what I was doing every single day. And not only was I helping people, but I was making more money because I was selling bigger death benefit policies. I was selling bigger types of policies, like your permanent policies. It was just everything became better at this point in time. I started enjoying what I did 10 times more. Like I actually fell in love with being the life insurance guy at that point in time because I felt like I was having conversations that were meaningful in nature, that I was actually solving customers' problems, and they actually had a plan that if something did happen to their families, that they wouldn't have to struggle financially. And there was something to be said about that. So I wanted to share those questions with you. And again, I'm going to challenge. Here's my thing is you don't have to use these questions, but you do have to ask some type of question that is going to evoke emotion in your customer and actually get them thinking around what would happen if I don't have a plan? What would happen if I'm not here? What would happen if my spouse isn't here? What would we do? How would I provide for my family? All right, so let's get into some more pivots. So one of my favorite pivots as well. So the household cleaning pivot is by far my favorite. My next favorite is anybody you're ever talking to, any customer you're ever talking to that has a mortgage or a homeowner. This is what I call the mortgage payoff protector plan pivot. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, disturb complacency. That's right. Let's go. All right. So before we get off the phone, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, before I let you off the phone, hey, I see that you have a homeowners with us. I just want to verify your mortgage real fast. Is it still with US Bank? Great. And roughly what kind of interest rate do you have? Awesome. And how much do you roughly owe on that? 400 grand. Great. Well, hey, I don't see any notes on file regarding your mortgage payoff protector plan, meaning that in the event something happened to you or your spouse and one of you passed away unexpectedly, the other spouse, the surviving spouse, would receive a check large enough to be able to pay off the mortgage so that they didn't have to worry about how they were going to make that next mortgage payment. Who's your mortgage payoff protector plan with? See what I did there? I'm using verbiage. So mortgage, we're talking life insurance, but we're using terms that the customer understands. This makes it simple and easy. Anyone can understand, oh, a mortgage payoff protector would make sure that my family received a check large enough to be able to pay off the mortgage. That's really easy for a customer to understand. That is simple. So that's the biggest thing here is we're using terminology that customers and consumers can understand. All right. So make sure you use that one again. Any homeowner that you talk to, that's why this is so powerful. So when you answer, when you or your team answer the phone, you pull up their profile, you see that they own a home, an automatic trigger should be, okay, I'm going to ask them about their mortgage payoff protector plan. Like it's a really easy and simple process that you and anyone in your agency can do every single time. All right. The next one that I like that I want to share with you today is our burial pivot. So anytime that you're talking to somebody that's 45 to 70, 50 to 65, all right, you pick the numbers. It depends on the type of policy you have. But hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, before I let you off the phone, I don't see any notes regarding your burial plan. Tell me, if something were to happen to you today, what do you have in place to make sure that your family wouldn't be responsible for anything out of pocket? Or your spouse wouldn't be responsible for anything out of pocket? What does your burial plan look like? Does that make sense? You all with me here? This is really easy, again, for the consumer to understand because unfortunately, all of us just went through 2020. No one likes to talk about 2020, but what did 2020 do? 2020 made death real. 2020, everybody knows somebody that passed away because of COVID. And if you don't, you're lucky. Every single person knows somebody that passed away because of COVID. All right. And so my question here is, hey, what does your burial plan look like? Everybody knows that they should have a burial plan. Everybody saw somebody that didn't have a burial plan and then had to start a GoFundMe account or had to go out to the community and ask for money. And so this is an easy conversation to have because of the unfortunate circumstances that we just went through as a country and as a world. All right. So that's one of my favorite pivots as well. So utilizing one of these 3 pivots. Y'all with me here? Any questions make sense? So next, we kind of went into those questions. And again, those questions, I want to reiterate that is because this is where the magic actually happens. You can track ask. All right. You can pivot, you can track pivots, you can use these word tracks I'm using for the pivots. But if you don't know how to have the conversation after the ask, because that's where most really struggle. I know that that's where I used to struggle because I was never taught how to have a conversation. I was never taught what questions you should be asking, digging in, getting curious, asking why, tell me about that. And then what happens after that? What happens after you get them emotionally involved in a conversation? So you have to be able to have really great conversations with people because, again, products don't sell. People do. You sell the product by having a meaningful, value-based conversation with your prospect or customer. All right, but those questions I ask are a really great starting point that, again, you can use in 99% of conversations. And just to repeat those, do you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially? If you were to pass away today, would you still consider yourself or would you still want to provide for your family financially tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? How long would you want to continue to provide for your family financially? In between each of those questions, get curious, dig in. Don't let them give you high-level answers. Why? Tell me about that. Why would that be important to you? What would the situation look like if you didn't provide for them financially? Woo! All right. I feel like I just threw a lot at y'all. All right. So if you guys like what you're hearing right now, we actually have a really cool workshop and challenge coming up called the 30 Life in 5 Days Challenge. We've done this now 8 times. And so we've had thousands of agencies go through it, agencies and producers. The whole goal is to write 30 Life in 5 days, but it starts next Tuesday, the 16th, and it goes through the 26th. And you're going to get word tracks of everything I'm talking about today, plus more scripts. You get a playbook of everything you do during those 9 days. You get a live training just like this every single day that is 30 minutes long, where we review specific word track scripts, the type of customer avatar that you're calling. We're doing some role plays. All right, and it's motivating. I'm a pretty fiery guy, so I'm going to motivate your team. I'm going to get you all going. And so you receive all of this and more. And today, so you can use, so the link is www.weaversa.com. Yep, Andy just put in the notes for me. And you can actually save $100 today by using the voucher code TH, because I like to reward people that invest in themselves and believe in development and growth and getting better. And that's exactly what you're doing today. So you can save $100. So it's less than $400 for your entire agency. That's not for one person. It's going to be less than $400 for your entire agency. I'd love to see you all there next week. All right. So starts on the 16th. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always, our winner in September had a team of 2, and she submitted 36 life apps and $35,000 in premium in 5 days, over 42 life apps in the 10-day period with over 38,000 in premium. So would love to have you there. All right. So let's get into this new business conversation, some of these new business processes, because this is an area where I feel like a lot of producers miss the boat. I know that I used to, because this would be a conversation where I would say, hey, included in the quote today is a $100,000 10-year policy, or included in the quote today is a $25,000 whole life policy. All right. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, except for I am saying if you haven't proposed a bigger life insurance policy to actually protect the ones that you're talking to, that's where I have a problem with that. If somebody decides, hey, 100,000 is enough for me, 25,000 is enough for me, that's cool. But if you as the insurance professional are having that conversation and you're going automatically to the, well, some is better than none, then you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the customer. And so one easy process that you can do, I'm going to teach you 2 different processes here. So on every new auto home quote that you're doing, You could do a mortgage payoff protector conversation. So you present the auto, you're going to educate them over the always. And by the way, just a little tip here, if you're quoting on the P&C side, always give people more coverage, always give people more policies, always use stories to sell the coverage, educate the customer, because the more empowered a customer feels, the more likely they are to buy from you. All right, because you're going to be different than anybody else they're talking to. So you go through the auto quote, and then you're going to pivot into the home. So, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, also included in the quote today is going to be a homeowner's. Now, before we get into the homeowner's quote, I had a quick question for you because I know that you have a mortgage. Who is your current mortgage payoff protector plan with? Meaning that in the event something happened to you, you passed away today unexpectedly, that your spouse would receive a check large enough to pay off the mortgage so that her and your family wouldn't have to worry about how they're going to make that next mortgage payment? So that's a really simple question because they're going to say typically one of two things. Either I don't have it, or are you talking about life insurance? So I'll tell you we don't have it is what the answer you receive 90% of the time. The other answer, hey, are you talking about life insurance? Yeah, I am. So, but 90% of the time they're going to say, I don't have anything. And then it's, well, tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, do you consider yourself responsible for providing for your family financially? Yes. Well, why? Tell me about that. So you can use those questions, or here's a variation. Well, would it be important to you that if you did pass away, that your spouse wouldn't have to worry about and struggle with making the mortgage payments? Would that be important to you? Well, yes. Well, why? Tell me about that. Why would that be important to you to make sure that your family wouldn't struggle paying the mortgage? Or why would it be important to you to make sure that your spouse and family received a check large enough to be able to pay off the mortgage? So you see what I'm doing here? Even though you're having a conversation that is a new business conversation, it's all over the phone, you can still ask the questions to get the customer emotionally involved in verbalizing why it would be important to them to protect their family. Why would they want to make sure their mortgage should be paid off? Why would that be important to them? What would happen if you didn't have a mortgage payoff protector plan? What would your family do in that situation? How are they going to be able to afford the mortgage without your paycheck coming in anymore? These are all really tremendous questions that you can use to get the customer emotionally involved in a conversation. And literally, it can be a 3 to 4 minute piece of the whole presentation, not even a lot. And then you're solving for the need. Well, hey, how much is your mortgage? So the average mortgage across America right now is more than $360,000. So now instead of just going to the 25 whole life or $100,000 10-year term, now we're talking about a $400,000 life insurance policy at a minimum, to where if something happens to them, you know that they're going to be taken care of, and you just sold a higher death benefit, higher premium policy. All right. So, whoo, Andy, thank you. Yeah, if y'all like this, throw me some fire emojis, man. I get fired up when I see some fire emojis. All right. So that's a really easy one. And then the other process I wanted to talk about was the debt payoff protector plan. All right, so this is one that you can use also on the home, because you could theoretically say, well, hey, besides your mortgage, what other debt do you have? All right, what other debt do you have? So you can solve for debt. Now, the debt payoff protector plan process is anytime you talk to any auto renter. So I just taught you an auto home process. Now let's talk about auto renters, because not everybody owns a home. Well, so you're going to present the auto. And hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, let me ask you real fast before we get into the renter's insurance policy. What does your debt payoff protector plan look like? Meaning that in the event something happened to you and you were to pass away, that your family or spouse would receive a check large enough to pay off all the debt and be able to make sure that they continue to make this rent payment. What does that look like? Most people are going to say, I don't have one. Or what are you talking about? Well, let me ask you, would it be important to you to make sure that your spouse and family didn't have to worry about bill collectors knocking on the door and sending them mail about why aren't they making these payments? Because your income, it's no longer there. Would it be important to you to have a plan in place to where all the mortgage, all the debt could be paid off? All the debt could be paid off. Why would it be important to you? Because most people are going to answer yes. Now you're going to come across, look, we've all been there. We've all been there where people are like, it's typically guys too. I don't know why, but Oh, she's fine. She's a smoke show. She'll be fine. She'll figure it out. Okay, well, I'm still gonna be like, why, or tell me about that. What, are you joking? Or are you serious? But that's like 1%. Let's focus on the 99%. 99% of people are going to say, yeah, that would be important to me. Well, why would that be important to you to make sure that all the debt could be paid off? You with me here? Any questions so far? So those are two really great new business sales processes that you can use. And then you just have a couple more questions. Why would it be important to you? What would it look like if you didn't have a plan in place? What would it look like if you did have a plan in place? How long would you want to make sure that after the debt's paid off, that your family could, that you continue to provide for them financially? How long? So these are all really great questions. Your typical customer answer is going to be 1 to 2 minutes max. So you're talking about still only adding an additional 4, 5, 6 minutes to a total conversation or call, but you've asked them questions that now have them intrigued into actually having a conversation with you, because you're not just talking at them, presenting an auto policy, a renter's, an auto, and a home, which can sometimes be boring. Now it's your job to make it fun. All right, you got to make it exciting. But when you introduce this type of conversation into the conversation and you're asking questions, you're talking about something that they've never thought about before. You're talking about something that really, really matters to them. You're talking about something that's going to pull on people's heartstrings. No one wants their family to struggle. But the average everyday consumer doesn't know what life insurance does for them. By asking questions and digging in, they self-discover they have a problem and what life insurance actually does for them. That's it. Like, that's life insurance at its basic form. Life insurance is an income protector. That's it. It's income replacement. For most customers, 99% of people you talk to are going to be individuals that have small kids at home. They have lots of debt. If anything were to happen to them, their family is literally going to be financially devastated and ruined if they don't have a life insurance plan. All right, y'all with me here? Does that make sense? Now, again, get curious and ask more questions. It's not good enough just to pivot in and ask one question. You have to continue to ask questions to get them bought into having a conversation with you, okay? So the last thing I really wanted to review on today's call was some ideas on some customers that you can reach out to, especially your current customers. I wanted to give you ideas because so many times I get asked, Michael, who should I be calling? How am I coming up with leads? What should I be doing? And I think that part of that's because we get so caught up in the day-to-day that you have to be intentional about what you're doing. But some of my favorite lists to run off the top of my head are going to be those current customers that already own life insurance. Because if you own life insurance, you believe in life insurance. So these are great people to call. My next list is going to be anyone that owns a home. So we're talking about mortgage payoff protector plans here, all right? So mortgage payoff protector plans, anybody that owns a home. Anybody that is 50 to 65 years old, we're going to call them and talk about the burial plan that I taught you earlier in the conversation. And then anybody that has a single line product with you. So it doesn't have to just be a single line auto, all right? Single line anything. Because why life insurance is so important for you right now is to help with retention. It helps insulate your business. All right, it drives the conversation away from price and the P&C products to actually helping their family. And so when you think about, as an insurance producer and professional, how can I get more referrals? How can I have better retention? How can I sell more financial services products, help more customers, and make more money than I've ever made? It's by having conversations like this. It's by intentionally prospecting your current clients. It's by bringing up life insurance on the new business P&C sales conversation and just not packaging it in, just not doing transactional selling. You want to create a transformational experience for your customer so that they're a customer of yours for longer and they tell other people to do business with you. Customers do not refer transactional businesses. They refer transformational businesses. They are going to refer people that they believe in, that they trust, that they have a relationship with. You don't do that by being transactional. You do that by being transformational and having conversations like I'm talking about today. The other challenge I'm going to give you today is to create a hot list. Right now, like after this webinar, I want you to create a list of a minimum of 50 people that you know. You see them on social media every single day. The average person's on social media for 2.5 hours a day. So I know you're on social media. And if you don't have social media, good for you. But if you're on social media, and even if you don't have social media, you can still do this exercise. I want you to create a list of 50 people at a minimum that you know that either just purchased a house, just got pregnant, just had a baby, just got engaged, or just got married. These are what I call life events. These 5 life events are absolutely money. All right. So again, anybody that just purchased a home, anybody that just got married, anybody that just got engaged, anyone that just got pregnant, or anyone that just had a baby. These are all tremendous life events to reach out to people. And these could be people you haven't talked to forever. Simply reach out, shoot them a text, shoot them an instant message. Hey, Andy, it's Michael. I saw that you just had a baby. Congratulations. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I work with XYZ Insurance Company, and I actually specialize in helping families out with new families out that have newborns with life insurance plans. If you'd be open to having a conversation, I'd love to have that conversation with you. Only need a few minutes of your time. Let me know. So that's not coming across as sleazy. I'm not trying to do the hey girl effect where you're like, hey, this is what my wife would say, like, hey girl, how you been? What you been up to? Oh, hey, the reason I'm contacting you is to sell you something. All right. You want some of that residual passive income? Y'all know what I'm talking about here. All right. So I love multi-level marketing companies. Look, I love them. All right. We were part of one ourselves, but in the insurance industry, you're already overcoming that sleazy used car salesman stereotype that people have. And so it's better to be direct and professional. All right, in my experience. So again, those life events, 50 at a minimum. And if any of you are interested in the 30 Life in 5 Days challenge, I'd love to work with you starting next week. Again, Andy dropped the links into the chat box earlier. Use the code TH to save the $100, less than $400 for your entire agency. Agency owners are always looking, and producers that are if you're an individual producer, you can also invest in it. Look, you're always looking for ways to make money, instant gratification on your investment. This is an investment that will pay off. We guarantee it. All right. So we've noticed this 8 times. The average agency submits 22 life apps in 5 days. So we offer a money back guarantee. All right. So if you're not happy with what you learn, if you're not happy with the results you get, we'll give you your money back. I'm not in this to take your money. I'm in this to help you, man. So I'll end with one little story around life insurance. Is so important because you'd have thought I would have learned my lesson after 2016 when we struggled. I started having better conversations, started actually being fulfilled. In 2018, so this would have been, 2017 actually, my buddy, so Drew, I contacted him when in 2014, when I very first opened my agency. He had just had a newborn. I was like, hey man, I'd love to help you out with a life insurance plan. You guys know how it is having conversations with friends and family. Those are sometimes the toughest conversations. And he's like, no, Mike, I'm good, man. I got it through work. I'm solid. Plus nothing's going to happen to me. All right. Well, the years went by, he had another kid, and I didn't reach out. He'd already told me no. So I was like, man, he's fine. He's 27 years old. He'll be good. So on the night of his 28th birthday, Drew was headed home from work. He worked the night shift, and he fell asleep at the wheel and rear-ended a semi, and he died on impact. Now, I didn't find this out until the next morning, and the very first thing, so I used to always check my phone first thing in the mornings when I got out of bed. And I still remember till this day, and I get choked up because it sucks. Like I check my phone and I have a message from my buddy Derek, and Derek was best friends with Drew. And he goes, hey, Mike, Drew was in a bad accident last night and he passed away. Do you by chance know if he had any life insurance with you? And I knew right then, I knew the answer. So I was like, man, I don't think so, but let me confirm when I get to the office, because I was too ashamed at that point in time to say, No, Derek, like I know for sure Drew doesn't have any life insurance. And I still get emotional today because his family, his wife and 2 kids are still struggling to today. They had to sell the house 3 months after his death, move in with her parents. They're still living with her parents today. They still haven't rebounded financially. His work policy he had was 50 grand. It took 9 months to pay out. Well, by the 9 month mark, the financial ruin had already happened. And so I want to share that story with you because you have an opportunity every single day to impact people more than you know. I know it's easy to get caught in the day-to-day routine. It's easy to get caught in the day-to-day fires that you're putting out every single day. But every single one of you, in my belief system, have the most important job and career in the world. You wear an A on your chest every single day. You are the protector of assets. Just like Superman wore a big S on his chest, you wear an A. You have the ability to have conversations with people that nobody else is having, to create a plan so that on their worst day, their family doesn't have to make tough decisions like selling their childhood home 3 months after they just lost their husband because they financially can't afford it. Like that is a terrible feeling that, again, I still get choked up today, 5 years later. And it sucks to think about because I know I didn't do my job. And I never would want you to be in a situation to where you feel the same way I did, because it's a shitty feeling, man. So I hope that if you're questioning life insurance, if you're like, does it really matter? It matters. And so I wanted to share that story just to end this webinar. And so I'd love to open it up to any Q&A, any questions you have, any way I can help you. Utilize me, because that's why I do what I do for a living. And again, my name is Michael Weaver. If you don't follow me, make sure you follow me on social. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram are probably my favorites. And we have an insurance podcast called The Insurance Buzz, where we do 2 episodes every single week, every Monday and Thursday. If you've never heard of The Insurance Buzz, make sure you check it out, because we're always delivering a lot of free content and value on that, along with all of our social media platforms. So Andy, thanks again, my man.
Yeah, 100%. And a few key takeaways I had, like, first of all, just that connection to your own personal story and experience with it, I think conveys a really good point that when you're in this on a personal level to actually help people, and you can connect stories to what you're actually selling, it's going to penetrate at a much deeper level. Like, you just got me to think about life insurance in a whole different way. And I heard a lot of great questions today. And something I learned from an old friend of mine was questions control the narrative. They control the conversation, and they put you in the driver's seat. And if you're just, like, to your point, if you just go in and fire hose somebody, here's why you need it, here's why it's so awesome, blah, blah, blah. You might have somebody just wanting $1 million policy because they think it's cool to have $1 million policy, instead of you helping them actually do the math and understand that. But that can only come through that line of questioning. So I really love the theme of that, because I think it follows the science of sales, that questions control the conversation. But these are quality questions. They're not questions for question's sake. It's really to understand that person's needs and get them to think through the process. So I took a ton of value away from this, and we're open in the chat for any questions that you guys have. We have a few more minutes here if you want to drop in questions. And we got our first one from April. And April asked, Michael, thank you for the call. What's the best response to those who say my financial advisor says I should not get or don't need life insurance? That's a good one.
Yeah, April, that's a really good one. So I get curious. So my answer is always going to be to get curious. So I would say, well, hey, tell me a little bit about that. Why doesn't your financial advisor recommend that you have a life insurance plan for your family? If something were to happen to you today, what would happen to your financial plan that you have with your financial planner? Because without an income, the retirement plan goes out the window. Without a guaranteed financial security plan, which is life insurance. Now, again, I'm telling you this, all right, for information. You're not going to tell the customer this. You're going to ask them questions to help them self-discover this. So, hey, I'm going to, those 2 questions. Hey, well, tell me about why your financial advisor wouldn't recommend you having a life insurance plan. Why? Tell me about that. Well, hey, I've got a question for you. If you or your spouse were to pass away today, what would happen to your retirement plan and financial plan that you have with your financial planner without a life insurance plan in place to replace that income? Financial planners I love financial planners. Most financial planners should be recommending life insurance to their customers. So that's why if somebody tells me that, and I got told that a lot in the area I was in, my question was always, well, tell me why they would recommend you not having a life insurance plan.
Perfect. Got another question here. It says, do you give your staff incentive or require them to participate?
Oh, well, you know, I like they need to be required. So I always put I always did it in my compensation plan. All right. So I always incentivize them through compensation plan and monthly and quarterly bonuses. So I believe in incentivizing for good work. It's like rewarding. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I believe that. And then I had that structured within my comp plan to where they had to write at least 3 life policies a month to qualify for their commissions. Okay. That was at a minimum. I had a couple other stipulations in there with some other additional products as well. But the whole thing, the number one reason why your team doesn't sell life insurance is because they're not confident. Either one of these, either don't believe in it or they're not confident in it. So I'm a firm believer that if you're going to sell something, you need to believe in it, which means you need to own it. All right. Just like every life insurance conversation I ever had with a customer in person, I would actually show them my life insurance plan because I have over $6 million in life insurance. And so now the million that we're talking about doesn't seem like that much money. And so I would show them my life insurance plan and I would walk them through my life insurance plan. Now, in me sharing this with you is team members and producers and agents have a really hard time selling life insurance because they don't own life insurance. So I would say that's the number one thing. You have to have belief. Number two, even if they own it, they don't have confidence in the conversation and selling it. The only policies most people sell that are not confident in it are your transactional, like, hey, included in the quote today. Oh, and we're saving you money. Okay, that's not selling. All right, that's packaging. At that point in time, you're just like pushing products. You're like, well, I was able to save you money today. You're just an order taker. So if you have a hard time right now with your team or even yourself selling life insurance or having the conversation, bringing it up, it's because your confidence isn't there. And your confidence isn't there because you don't know how to start it, how to overcome objections, how to ask the questions, how to educate them on the types of policies. What should the death benefit be? And so that's where I would start. And so if you're sitting here right now and you're like, yeah, that's me, contact me, reach out, let's have a conversation. Regardless if you decide to work with me or not, I'm going to give you some extreme amount of value on that call. Okay.
And I know you've done that for many clients I've spoken with. So I appreciate you for doing that. And we got some feedback here. Chad said, this approach is going to be huge with my confidence. Thank you for sharing. Lance said, I agree, Chad. This is the best approach I've come across thus far. So some really awesome feedback coming through. And when you were talking about not owning life insurance, but selling it, I was imagining the guy that works at a Chevrolet dealership, but drives a Ford, and you see him in the parking lot and you're like, wait, what? But that's probably there's probably a metric out there you could look at for, closing rates, depending on whether you actually own life insurance yourself or not. But if you're not a believer in it yourself, how are you supposed to sell it to somebody else? So it's a good point.
Well, the best sales professionals in the world are those individuals that believe in what they're doing. They want to help people and they're asking questions to help customers self-discover, empower the customer, educate the customer. If you're just out slinging policies to make money, make a paycheck, and trust me, when I was 22 years old, got into it, guys, I didn't have any belief in life insurance. I didn't have confidence in sales, but I had to make a living. So I was just slinging, I was doing whatever I had to, whatever it took. The problem is you're going to get burnt out. You're going to be unfulfilled. And the type of conversations I'm talking about today you're going to be forced to have these conversations. We're at a pivotal time in the insurance industry right now. Look, the transactional selling model over the last decade has really made a lot of individuals lazy, including both those in the agency force and the consumers. The Gen Zers, they're not gonna be down with this. 83% of Gen Zers, according to a recent Schwab survey, said 83% want that go-to financial professional that they can turn to and ask questions to. How about your millennials? They're sitting at 79%. So your two target age demographics that you're going to be working with and helping out for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, they want human connection. They want real conversations. They want that professional that they have a relationship and they can turn to and ask questions. Now, don't get me wrong. They still want this thing. They still want to be able to control their policies by their phone, their fingertips 24/7 when they want, but they want you to be able to ask questions to because they don't know shit about insurance and they don't know anything about financial services or money. Who does? You do. You do. And so that's why these types of conversations, if you're not willing to have these types of conversations that I'm talking about today, or you don't want to learn and develop and grow, which all of you do, so congratulations, but your peers that don't want to, they might not have a career in the next 3 to 5 years because AI will be able to have a better conversation in a transactional selling model than humans will be able to. Now, what can AI never do? AI can never establish the type of conversations like we're having today, that human connection piece. And that is what's going to ensure and guarantee that you thrive and flourish in the insurance industry over the next 5, 10, 15 years, because I think the next decade in insurance is going to be the best decade for insurance professionals that's ever happened in the insurance industry, ever. I believe that to my core, but you're going to have to be able to have real conversations with people where you're asking them questions and you're digging in. This just isn't on the life insurance side, guys. This is on the P&C side too. All right, this is a P&C side too. All sales are emotional. All sales are emotional. You have to ask the questions to get the customers emotionally involved in the conversation and educate them on what insurance actually does for them.
Awesome. And Michael, do you have time for one more question before we run?
Dude, I got time. I got as much time as you need, brother, man.
All right. Lance said, well, I don't know if you just want to read it. I'm kind of got that Ohio slug, so I go kind of slow. So if you just want to read it, he's got a good question there for you.
All right. As an example, you just wrote home and auto insurance for a customer. Would you go into the life convo on that same call, or would you set up a follow-up call at a later time so they don't feel like you keep pushing sales? That's a really great question, Lance. So there's multiple ways here. So obviously the process I taught you was auto, mortgage payoff protector, home, auto, debt payoff protector, home. You're going to present all of these in one, and then you're going to present one price for the whole package, the whole insurance plan. Now, the question you're asking me is, Michael, if I've already presented the auto renters or auto home, I've asked for the sell, do I get into that life insurance conversation now? Don't get into the life insurance conversation until you've already closed the business that you've already asked for the money for. So once you collect the money, then one of my favorite, this is another really great question that you can ask without bringing up, you can do the questions I've already asked, or you could say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you know what? It totally slipped my mind and I apologize. I'm going to get everything processed that we've already talked about today. But tell me, what does your current life insurance plan look like? For example, what do you have through work? Because I need to make notes in the system. So it's a really easy conversation that you can lead into after. Now, here's the thing, close the business first, get payment information first. So you can definitely ask that. Now, if you're like, Michael, this sounds confusing because I'm already asking for Google reviews, I'm asking for referrals. So the number one thing here is always set an onboarding appointment. Regardless if you bring up life insurance, don't bring up life insurance, just close the P&C, always schedule an onboarding appointment. So an easy word track here. This has nothing to do with life insurance, but hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I'm gonna get everything processed today that we talked about. So your 2 cars in your home. One thing that we like to do differently in our agency is put a face with a name and get to know who we're doing business with. When would be a good time in the next 2 or 3 days to put on the calendar for you to come into the agency and just review everything that we talked about in person today and just get to know you a little bit? Now, some of you might be saying, well, Michael, what if they're 4 hours away? Easy. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, one thing we like to do different here in the agency is put a face with a name and get to know everybody that we're doing business with. When would be a good time to schedule a virtual appointment in the next 2 or 3 days, just to get to know each other a little bit more and review everything one more time that we talked about on the phone today? So always set an onboarding appointment. And then I hope that life pivot worked for you guys. I hope that you guys like that. Sometimes the easiest, look, just by asking the question, it provokes a thought. It provokes an answer. So just by asking that one additional question sets yourself up for success, and it sets the customer up for success. Just think about the +1 approach. The +1 approach. Now you got to be intentional, because it's always easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to get on to my next call. I'm going to get on to the next service work. I've got a pile of stuff I got to get done. Go the +1. Go the +1, because you never want to be in the situation I was in the morning I received the text from my buddy saying my buddy had passed away.
Awesome. I'm going to throw that link up here for those of you that walked into this call not knowing what to expect, and you're like, man, I got to get some more of this and perfect it and take it to that next level. I put up the link weaversa.com/30and5 and that code for $100 off. Thank you for that, Michael. That's awesome. And if you go
Yeah,
there,
and Andy, I got to tell you, man, that challenge is always a lot of fun. If you guys sign up for it, as long as you're willing to do the work, you will see tremendous, massive results. You will help more people in a week's time frame than most agencies help in an entire year. All right. Again, you get playbooks, you get scripts, you get word tracks, you get training every single day. You get text access to me every single day. Like we view ourselves as partners in your success, and we really believe in that. And again, it's $400. It's less than $400 for the whole agency with the code. So I'd love to work with you. It starts next week on the 16th.
Awesome. Well, if there's no further questions, I think we'll wrap this party up. But Michael, man, I really would just want to like take a second here and thank you for your time, because I know you're a busy man and you've got 5,000 clients that y'all support. But I don't know if you saw some of the feedback that I dropped into the chat. Those were multiple submissions that I got on that poll, all about conversations. Love it. Confidence for staff, ask the questions, wording and asking questions. I received a huge confidence boost. Must have a conversation, the approach on how to ask questions and pivot phrases, so on and so forth. So you definitely made an impact here today, and really appreciate your time.
Man, that you sharing that with me and you all sharing that with me, that y'all just made my day. So thank you guys. Thank you so much again for showing up today. Andy, thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate every single one of you all.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have an awesome day. Michael, again, thank you so much.